Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, for all the right reasons, mental health is at the forefront of all of our minds and the care therein that it needs to be given. But when you're talking about an organization that has been doing exactly that for the past 30 years, to say that they're ahead of the game would be probably a little redundant. And you know what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because, quite frankly, you're listening right now. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the old 5-star rating and subscribe, basically wherever you get your podcasts. We're available over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, pretty much all platforms. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, and we're on the Instagram, as the kids call it, for all sorts of fun updates. We're in the seats, of course, yeah. But finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because we love to write about it and talk about it and watch it, obviously, first and foremost. We love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, we are staying local. We are staying in, not quite local. We're staying in the city of Toronto because that's where the in-person screenings are. But it's also going to be virtually happening over the next little while. It is a virtual festival, but it's an important one, and it's celebrating their 30th anniversary. It is Rendezvous with Madness, which is running from October 27th through November 6th. And it's an important one. To us, this is really one of those festivals that matters because it focuses an artistic lens on mental health. And it is kicking off tonight with their debut screening over at the Hot Docs Ted Rogers Cinema of their opening night film, How to Save a Dead Friend. And if you want to know more about Rendezvous with Madness, but also sort of their lineup as well, I do recommend you go over to workmanarts.com and figure out about all the fantastic things that they are doing over there. But, you know, first and foremost, and because this is a podcast, so we are talking to somebody, but we are talking to somebody. We're talking to the man who's been at the helm of this festival, Mr. Scott Miller-Berry. He's the managing director over at Rendezvous with Madness, and as they're celebrating their 30th year, I felt it was time to sort of have a sit down with him and talk about the festival and its longevity and sort of the themes therein and what they try to do and just sort of the challenges of, still being a festival after 30 years, because not everybody can say that. But it's running from October 27th tonight through November 6th with in-person screenings here in Toronto, but also a selection available online as well. And if you go to their website, workmanarts.com, you can find out so very much more. But first and foremost, enjoy our talk with Scott, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one. But I mean, obviously, first off, just to kick it off officially, just congratulations on year 30. And I mean, thank you so much for the time today.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of In the Seats and really appreciate your time chatting about the 30th Rendezvous with Madness.
Well, and I mean, I've always been a big proponent of this festival just because it brings up obviously some themes that, you know, the world needs to be discussing a lot more, obviously, but some fantastic films as well. And I mean, I guess my first question for you is because I'm kind of in love with the hashtag or the theme, as it were. Like, talk to me a little bit sort of about coming to this theme of more than rebellion, because it almost feels like, and especially with some of the films that have been programmed, that this year is about not just sort of the need for help, but the need to help oneself, if that makes any sense.
Sure. No, I really appreciate the question. Yeah, we've always kind of prided ourselves on, I mean, it's what we do, right? We get people together to talk about difficult things, to talk about things that we feel are, mental health is universal.
Yeah.
It really is. It touches everyone and all of us. And in terms of More Than Rebellion, I have to give our program assistant Caitlin Gallucci credit because it was her idea, but it came out of discussions that we had as a team going into our third festival in COVID, dealing with COVID, and just talking about wanting change, craving change, like as individuals, as humans, but also like as a festival. It's like we know that we're always going to get people together to discuss, really varied approaches to mental health, addictions, wellness, and recovery through film, through performance, through art, etc. But I think the theme came out of a place of really wanting to foster a space to talk about, like, let's make this world and this society, and whether it's your neighborhood or your city or your region or your continent, like, let's make it a better place for everyone, and that it's okay to push back, it's okay to rebel, it's okay to say, like, we just don't accept the status quo. And but let's actually kind of frame, we're just trying to frame the festival this year as a space to also talk about how to make change.
Well, that's fantastic. And I mean, just especially in the history of the festival, it always feels there's always felt like this particular festival has always been it was hybrid before it was a word. Like it was a hybrid festival before it was a quotation mark. But I mean, I've got to imagine for you guys it's nice to sort of have at least some in-person components sort of coming back to the plate. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like for you guys, how important was that to sort of not just push the message, but I mean push sort of the sense of community as well that comes out of these screenings and these events as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Thank you. It's actually been very complicated and tricky, and I've learned a lot, and the whole team has learned a lot. And every, 2020 was different, of course, for all of us, but 2021 was different, and this year is going to also be different because we're kind of learning as we all go, like how do we try to create a space in real life for people that are willing to go into a cinema or to a gallery or a space together now, to experience art and talk about it, and how do we also deliver some sort of connected experience online, and even in 2022 both still have challenges. We probably put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves because we obviously are so passionate about having these discussions through these amazing films and art. But it's been it like I said, it's been tough. I mean, we were surprised how our audience in 2020 was quite national and international. We fought that year very hard to have the films available worldwide. But that was not possible last year. The whole politics of geo-blocking and rights, and I don't want to waste everyone's time, but I could talk your head off about my passionate feelings about it. But anyway, we went across Canada, and that was also great. But we found that our audiences weren't as strong online. I'm sure there was just a lot of screen exhaustion,
For sure.
and we tweaked it again this year. We're doing less live Zoom talks. We're doing more in the room talks that are going to be recorded and then put into the streaming platform. And we're just kind of, like I said, we're learning ourselves, but we're also learning from our audiences because we take our surveys very seriously, and we really ask everyone that attends, however they attend, like, what works, what doesn't work, what do you want to see more of or less of, like, how do you want to connect. But back to the top of your question, for Rendezvous with Madness, being in a space together as humans and having an experience together that's relational, and that whether or not we agree, whether or not we have opposing positions, it doesn't matter, but being in that room is so important. And although we have 7 films this year and 7 performances and an exhibition, it's still a hybrid festival, and it's not, not everything is in person, unfortunately.
Now, I mean, I'm curious when obviously you're looking at, different sort of works of art or different films, like does a through line sort of present itself, or is it one that you sort of have to try to put, like, I mean, I don't want to say manufacture because that's the wrong word, but to try to sort of meld into sort of the, I guess maybe the message of what the festival has been for so many years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We don't program into a theme, even though we've had these discussions, and it's like we I guess because the kinds of things we're investigating and kind of grappling with are already so they're immense, right? Like there's no way that one Rendezvous with Madness festival can incorporate every mental health experience, situation, every addiction, every struggle, every success story, every recovery. It's just impossible. So we try our best. We obviously we like to see what kind of we program by committee, which I'm really proud I brag about. Whether it's the film team, which is 5 of us, or the performance team, which this year was 4 people, and the exhibition team, which was 4 people. We still like that model. It's very collaborative. It takes longer. It's more work. It's more, it's definitely it's challenging in its own ways, but I find that actually a lot it creates a more vibrant slate of programs with a lot of different opinions in the mix. And we just try once we kind of have the things that we would like to present, then we all as a larger group kind of have discussions about, yeah, are there themes, are there things that are missing, are there voices that are missing, are there cultures and places in the world, or forms. We think about the form, right? Like I think historically we showed more traditional documentary and kind of more mainstream fiction. And we've really, the last number of years, we still show that, and that's really important, but we have tried to move a little bit more, just a wider amount of forms, less literal mental health films, in quotes,
Yeah.
more subtle representations of larger social issues that intersect with mental health. I hope this is answering your question.
No, it is, because there's a few films I've had a chance to watch so far, because there's things like Gemma and Tim and Bigger Than Us and How to Save a Dead Friend, which really feel like films that stress the importance of the conversation,
Mhm.
if that makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, for you guys, because obviously you don't want to harp on mental health, but you want to encourage it and you want to support it. And it feels like the first step for anybody, no matter where they are, what walk of life they're in, is just to be able to have a conversation.
Absolutely. And I like to say when I do talks about Rendezvous, especially with students, it's like it's not all depressing. Some things are, but that's also life. It's like we shouldn't avoid it, but we also try to be really clear through our keywords. Like we don't want people to obviously uh, attend something where it's too uncomfortable for them. That's of course fair enough, and we offer supports along the way for the audience. But yeah, you're totally right. Like um, we're really trying we're really trying to prioritize films and art that we think will lend itself to a really interesting, a deeper discussion, right? And yeah, it's like mental health. Mental health is like it it's it's so important. It's touching more people than ever, especially through this pandemic. And I think that's where we probably are, like, we're really I think finding an interesting zone. I say this humbly, in terms of like creating space to talk about difficult things, as we're all, literally everyone on this globe is like has been going through like really stressful, very, like, there's so many traumas that have occurred and are yet to occur, right? Um, but we do think about making sure that not everything is a downer, but that it's okay if some things are, and that's also important. But we do also look, it's like I wish people would make more mental health comedies, because it's important. Laughter is the best medicine. We are doing a comedy night again this year. I'm really psyched about that. Because it's also okay to laugh. It's okay to laugh. It's important to laugh at ourselves, and to laugh at things that are really effing hard sometimes.
Well, yeah. No, I'm curious because you alluded to this a little bit before, but the nature of the business, especially when it comes to film, has changed so much, and just sort of securing films and getting access and that kind of thing, because people want to release it, they want it out, they want it quick, quick, quick. Has that put pressure on you guys, or has that sort of changed the narrative for you to try to find stuff that, okay, maybe even if it's out, but if it fits the theme right, maybe we can talk them into it? How do you sort of go about this from a programming standpoint? Because I mean, even like when it
Mm.
comes to film festivals, people think of films that aren't out yet. But it feels like with Rendezvous, you're at a point where you can kind of transcend that and go more towards the theme and the issue as opposed to sort of what the release date is.
Super interesting stuff. Yeah, it's like, I mean, we're kind of well, we're lucky in lots of ways. I mean, it's a privilege to program film in general, but I think it's a privilege to program for this festival because of what it's always set out to do for 30 years. But we're also lucky that we don't have a premiere policy. We're not a market-driven festival. We're not beholden to corporate sponsors, etc. Right? We're not like we're actually. I mean, you could also argue that that's disappointing and that's like too bad because of the important work we're doing. But I actually think from my with my programmer hat on, it's actually liberating because it's like, okay, so whether something has shown at Hot Docs or shown at Real Asian or shown at Inside Out, like if we think that it merits, merits sounds sorry. If we think it would be important to show it again, because we're going to frame it a little bit differently, the way all festivals do, right? And we're going to make a room for a longer discussion, etc. Then we'll do it. If we happen to get a film that hasn't shown in Toronto or so-called Canada or North America, or whatever, like great, but that's not a criteria for us, right? We're not like some festivals, right? That's their
Oh, that's their
like
modus
yeah,
operandi.
like when
No,
they're
for sure. Yeah.
gatekeeping the North American premiere, it's like everything else falls off the list. And of course I'm like F that, but that's why I work at a festival like Rendezvous. Yeah, it's a really layered question because we have, I don't know that it happened this year, but we did pre-record some Q&As, and there was one director said, I'm kind of curious why your festival chose this film. Not in a negative way, but in a genuine, like, curious way. And it kind of relates to one of your previous questions about like looking for films for discussion and dialogue, right? Because on the face of it, I didn't see you there. My Emptiness and I, My Two Voices, Rain in 2020. Like again, things that are addressing larger social issues, bigger than us. They wouldn't scream mental health or rendezvous type film. But I think this is where I feel like we're trying to kind of push ourselves and push our own expectations and boundaries and try to also, reach people that we wouldn't have reached before by saying, yeah, you know what? Environmental catastrophe and resource extraction and gender rights and migration, these are mental health issues. They all impact people's well-being and ability to function, so-called function or whatever, like just to get by and get through. This year was really hard to get films available for streaming. If there's any, if you said what was the one industry change this year, in one case we were actually showing we really, for accessibility reasons, we in our hybrid states we are trying to show everything online, and everything is online across Canada. Our opening night film, How to Save a Dead Friend, is only available in Canada opening night, then it moves to Ontario. But that's the only film that is that way. Everything else is across so-called Canada, with the exception of a beautiful film from Iran called Two Dogs that wouldn't give us the streaming rights. But we lost films this year because we insisted on having a streaming option. We try to be flexible with that option, but that was the one shift that we saw, and it was really frustrating at times. Where I get it from a piracy point of
For
view,
sure. Yeah.
of course, and I get it because they're trying to support cinema operators, which I do and we do too. I really do get it, but we do we for us it is an accessibility issue. Like some people, it's hard to leave the house. I mean, it's hard for me to leave the house half the time. But it's hard for people to leave the house, or it's hard for people. Some people just aren't going to the cinemas yet. Like that's just the reality. But making it available for us is important. I hope I answered it.
No, I think you did, because I mean it's one of those things where I'm finding more and more, especially when it comes to the festival side of things, that need for flexibility seems to be so much more paramount, because it's one of those things where, and I mean, I'm kind of curious to ask you this question because you mentioned sort of how you present things and sort of in that shift in perspective. Do you think that's been one of the primary reasons why Rendezvous managed to hit 30 years? Because I mean, for festivals of this nature, not everyone can say they've hit 30 years. That is an achievement in and of itself.
Thanks. Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, I mean, when if if I can um just share a personal story, like
Do it.
when I first stumbled into Rendezvous with Madness, it was either 2001 or 2002. I keep meaning to look back in the archive, but I saw the name, I looked it up, I was like, okay, this sounds really interesting. And as someone who has, have my own lifelong depression and all kinds of stuff, I was like, this is like a passion for film and a passion for mental health, like bring it on. But I walked into what was then the Workman Theater at the old CAMH building at Queen and Ossington, part of Queen Street Mental Health Center before that. And I literally, my mind was just blown open. I couldn't believe how tense the discussions were after the films. Like there was just it was like it was elegant chaos, but there was space made for different positions and different life experiences and completely different approaches, and like from anger to laughing to tears to celebration, it was like all there. And I was like, this is it, like I feel so lucky to be working here now, because it was like I just can't believe that there is a festival. Then it was exclusively film, and it still is mostly film. It's like that just is willing to go there and to, we've shown films about virtuous pedophilia. Like not a lot of festivals are going to show those films and be willing to say, like, let's have a discussion about something that, whether you like it or not, is like causing people to like take their life. And let's talk about like the real experiences that people go through when they are, have this situation that they're facing. Um, I'm sorry, I totally forgot your question.
No, I forgot too, but you're telling a good story, so okay.
Um, you were asking about
No, but
I'm so sorry.
no, don't worry about it. You did
Oh,
kind
about 30, sorry, making it 30 years.
yeah, make it 30
Yeah, yeah,
years. Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Okay. You're going to edit this, right? Um, um, I think part of making it 30 years for Rendezvous with Madness, I kind of referenced it earlier, in that we don't like we have a lot of freedom and we have a lot of latitude, and it really is a privilege to like kind of do what we want, right? We're not beholden to external players. Um, at the same time, we've also been super lucky, and this is not about me, but it's like we've just been lucky to have really amazing staff over the years, and audience. Like, the average year we get like 400 surveys. Like people, our audience is not shy about telling us what they like, hate, don't want to see again, want to see again. The number of times I've been kind of pulled aside in the lobby to be like, why did you show that? But to me, someone taking the time to do that, like it is such a gift, and it's so important. Like I think it's really important when you program art to be willing to take feedback, whether it is really negative or really positive. Positive's great too, but it's like I live for those criticisms. I really do. It's like I learn so much through hearing what people are are not so happy about in our programming. Um, but I think that, I mean, this might sound surfacey, but it's like even though there's a lot of work to do around mental health, support and awareness, I do think that things are better now than they were 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 30 years ago. And I think that especially with COVID, this has been interesting for us. It's like there's a real opening, there's an opportunity, like in a real larger way, right? People are talking about impacts to healthcare workers. People are talking about impacts to retail workers.
Mm,
People are talking about, the great migration or whatever, people like leaving their job, and like people's lives have been upended. And I think that a part of that, of course, is mental health. Um, and we're all trying to we all lost our footing, right? We all, like, our
for
worlds were
sure.
all, our worlds were turned upside down. It's very rare. It's like capitalism stopped. If only it would stop longer. That's just me. And we had to deal with it, and we're still dealing with it. So it's one of those things where it's like I don't know that I don't think there's one secret to our success, except that we are lucky to get really good government grants. We have a nice partner in CAMH that's like gives us great space and a great theater, and we have a lot of people and a lot of artists. I mean, the fact that we get hundreds of submissions every year, like people who are just willing to take a chance on us, it really is heartwarming.
Well, and I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's the beautiful thing about Rendezvous, because I mean, obviously, art is meant to sort of spark discussion and spark interest, and sort of touch the soul, and help us evolve and become better human beings. And part of the whole thing with mental health is part is being able to have a conversation. And for 2 years
Mm,
we stopped talking to anybody, and we all
totally.
forgot how. And we're kind of at this point where we're learning how to converse again, and we're learning how to be a part of a community again. And I mean, it's interesting to see how many people are actually sort of searching that out, and want to sort of engage with a myriad of different issues. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're sad, but it's
Hmm.
having that willingness there is really sort of heartwarming to me as an individual. And I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's got to be the drive for not just your festival, but I mean, so many artistic endeavors going forward, just to be able to sort of re-spark that community, to get people talking to one another again.
That's such a good point. I mean, I didn't think of it earlier, but you just reminded me, like last year, for example, our talks and our workshops were incredibly well attended, and in some cases more than some of the films in terms of online. But I think that just goes to what you're saying. It's like people are craving connection, right? We've lost connections for 2+ years, and people can, it's like watching film now it's so bizarre, right? Because we all can watch, whatever, like it's just too much content, in my humble opinion, but which is also an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And in Toronto, we're so lucky to have so many festivals. But there's something about the talks and the workshops, like we did an online collage party, right? And you've got 40 people wherever they are, like who were mailed collage kits, right, in the mail, or picked them up. And like everyone's collaging and kind of talking about, answering some reflective questions, and, journaling and then collaging. And it's like that, like just watching it, and I was collaging too, but it's like just watching it unfold was such a beautiful thing. It was like, this is, even though we're in a Zoom thing, like we're connected, we're sharing something that's coming from the heart and from our creation. And I do think that that's, whether it is online or, hopefully in the cinema. Like I hope that that's continues to be the bond that, helps Rendezvous into the next 30 years, is getting people in a room to talk about important things.
You know what? I agree with you on that. I mean, and thank you so much for just creating a little bit of spark on that front, and just giving me some time today. And thank you for this really fascinating lineup of films, which I can't wait for people to see.
Thanks, David. Appreciate your time.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.